The fear of gun confiscation in the U.S. is a real fear for many Americans. We hold the Second Amendment to be a great prize that really stands for freedom. Without the Second Amendment, freedom may not be able to stand. But a lot of people truly fear about gun confiscation in America following the 2020 election. So we're going to dedicate this video to really looking at the truth behind gun confiscation. Is it a reality? Well, let's just say there's a few different ways that the government can confiscate your guns. Let's start off with straight up confiscation. In my opinion, this is not realistic. This would be like lighting a powder keg. There's an estimated 400 million guns in the U.S. In the first 6 months of 2020, 19 million guns were sold. That's one gun for 20 people in the U.S. in just the first 6 months of 2020. So, what does gun confiscation look like? Well, again, it looked like lighting a powder keg. First and foremost, because there's so many guns, you'd need the police departments and the military across the U.S. to be on board. This would not happen. Many state police as well as local sheriffs would straight up refuse to obey these laws because, number one, it'd be putting their own officers at risk. Number two, it's a violation of the Constitution, and they see it that way. So I really don't think this is realistic at all, that there would be this nationwide gun confiscation. There's no registry of guns, at least in most states, so that means they really have to go house to house. And this would cause an extreme loss of lives and extreme division in the U.S., unlike anything we could have ever imagined. There's so many constitutional violations with this outside of just Second Amendment violations that even if we were under a tyrannical government, this is still not a realistic thing. I don't believe this would ever be a possibility. I don't think even if somebody, again, even if we were under a tyrannical government and they said, let's confiscate all the guns, I just simply don't think there's any way it could possibly be done. However, another way is federal red flag laws. Now, federal red flag laws, in my opinion, are the most dangerous aspects of our Second Amendment rights. Being determined dangerous without due process is a very dangerous practice. Many states already have red flag laws, and if there are federal red flag laws, this could mean that certain groups, whole groups, could lose their rights to guns if those groups are determined dangerous. It was in September of 1935 that Germany passed the Nuremberg laws. And among many things that were involved with that, they determined Jews dangerous and they lost their rights to own guns. Prior to this, Germany had some of the freest gun laws in the world. With federal red flag laws, they can determine certain militias dangerous, they could determine certain religious groups dangerous. If they were to say Christians are dangerous, then anybody affiliated with Christianity could lose their guns under federal red flag laws. And when you're taking guns from just certain individuals, that can go pretty quick. You take it from this group, then you take it from that group, and then this group, and it could really go pretty quick. And that way the rest of the citizens are not losing their guns. They have a little bit of a fear in them, or maybe they're approving, like we saw in Germany, of these certain groups losing their guns. However, right now there are no federal red flag laws on the books, but again, in my opinion, it's the most dangerous aspect of the Second Amendment. The third way is to make certain guns illegal, or to just make guns in general illegal altogether. Making it illegal to own guns or own certain types of guns, essentially, they don't have to take your guns. It just right now, that would make you a felon. Currently, there's an act in Congress called H.R. 127, which is a national registry and licensing of guns. I am going to make a video next week on the details of that, but essentially this would make you a felon if you didn't register your guns and get a license to own guns. And many people are not, and you might say, well, they can't take my guns and I'll hide my guns and that kind of thing, and that's realistic because they won't know you have guns. But if you're ever out hunting with those guns, or you're pulled over driving and you happen to have a gun on you, or if you were in a self-defense situation and you used one of those guns, suddenly you are arrested under a federal felony of illegal guns. It's a very realistic aspect of being able to take guns without actually taking your guns. So to answer the question, right now in this moment, can the federal government take your guns? Of course they can't. But it wouldn't take much to change federal laws to start down that path. If H.R. 127 passes, I highly recommend everybody sue the federal government and it find its way to the Supreme Court. I know the Supreme Court isn't perfect right now, but in my opinion, it's the most pro-Second Amendment Supreme Court that there has been in my lifetime. And I do have hope in the Supreme Court because obviously laws like the H.R. 127 are extreme violation of the Second Amendment. And even though they have not seen many Second Amendment cases, they did take one recently with the state of New York. And of course, New York State dropped that case quickly because they were fearing for federal laws being changed for pro-Second Amendment people. So I don't think it would take much to find its way to the Supreme Court. Again, I know the Supreme Court isn't perfect, but it's the most pro-Second Amendment Supreme Court that I have seen in my lifetime. And again, if H.R. 127 passes, I highly recommend everybody who owns a gun sue the federal government. And it will make its way to the Supreme Court, I believe. So there you go. Can the government really take your guns? Right now, absolutely no, they cannot. But it wouldn't take much. Federal red flag laws and things like the H.R. 127 could certainly start steering us that direction pretty quickly. So, hope this video helps. Love to hear your thoughts on it. Put it in the comments below. If you like this video, click like and subscribe. If you feel called to support this channel through Patreon, that link is also below. But the most important part of this channel is we take prayer requests, so never hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.